Today, I'm going to give you my thoughts on yesterday's Warriors-Rockets game and why I also believe that, it's finally time for the Houston Rockets to end the Jalen Green experiment. But before we get started, I want to tell you guys to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share, and to continue to support my channel. It's official. The Golden State Warriors ended up defeating the Houston Rockets in a game 7 with the final score being 103-89. And it was the Golden State Warriors, they got the job done. They ended up closing the deal and they kind of held control of that game for the most part. Look, I don't think there was ever a moment throughout that entire game that I felt like the Houston Rockets were going to win that game. I thought Golden State held control defensively. Shout out to Buddy Hield for his performance. He had 33 points in the entire game. I think he was 12 for 15 shooting. He had 22 or 23 first half points, and so he balled out. Draymond Green was aggressive offensively. He made a few threes, and I thought defensively probably played his best game of the series. I thought he did a number on Afra and Şengün. Jimmy Butler was steady, and Steph Curry, that bad MFer, the greatest shooter ever, he closed the deal when it mattered the most late in that game, hitting big threes, contested threes, doing his thing on it, finishing at the rim, and even playing some defense. I thought he had some really good defensive possessions in that game as well. I thought Steph Curry in the second half of that game was dominant, and he did his thing. He did what a superstar, all-time great player is supposed to do. He willed his team in the second half to a win, an elimination win over the Houston Rockets. And so congrats to the Golden State Warriors, and I'm definitely going to be looking forward to that series in the second round when they play the Minnesota Timberwolves. But I gotta get into the Houston Rockets. And look, for the Houston Rockets, they had an outstanding year considering the expectations. Before the year started, look, I thought the Houston Rockets coming into the season was going to be a really good basketball team, but I don't think anyone expected them to be second in the Western Conference and win, 52 games? I might be wrong about 52, 53 games, but they finished second in the Western Conference. They were the number 2 seed. They had some really nice contributions from key players. Some young players were stepped up and had nice seasons. And so Houston had a great year. Ime Udoka, unbelievable coach. To get that team to play high-level defense the way that he's been able to is incredible. To get buy-in from players, veterans, having guys like Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, Steven Adams, great year from the Houston Rockets. But there's going to be a lot of conversation about the Houston Rockets heading into the offseason, and deservedly so, because the Houston Rockets are set up really nicely when it comes to their roster. They got young talent. They have all the picks. They got the Phoenix Suns picks for the next few years, including the pick this year, which is currently slated 9th in the NBA draft lottery. And look, the NBA draft lottery is a week from today. And who knows, if that Phoenix Suns pick ends up getting into the top 4, or better yet, dare I say, if that pick ends up being number 1 overall, and they could have the opportunity to draft Cooper Flag, what? That would be something. That would be something. And so the Houston Rockets have a lot. They have a lot on their plate. They got a lot of things to look forward to. And they're going to be a team that many people are going to talk about as far as them. Could they get a star player? Who could they go after? Giannis, as I said in the last episode, like, he's going to be a guy that people are going to talk about. Could the Houston Rockets get him? Could they get Kevin Durant? Even though there's been some reporting that, maybe the Houston Rockets would prefer a younger guy, a guy that fits their age curve, their age timeline, considering, the guys on their team are in their mid-20s. Could they get a Devin Booker if the Phoenix Suns kind of changed course and realized that, maybe what we get for Kevin Durant ain't all that impressive, and maybe we need to rebuild. And so, look, who knows? Things can change in the NBA landscape. So, but could the Houston Rockets go after him? So Houston might have some options if they indeed decide that, we need to get a star player and we need to upgrade this team. And that might be a wise decision for them to take, because here's the big picture when it comes to the Houston Rockets. Whether they go after a star player or whether they want to keep this thing together and let the young players grow for a little bit, here's the one thing that absolutely needs to change for the Houston Rockets. They need to cut bait with Jalen Green. Yeah, absolutely. The Houston Rockets, regardless of what the Houston Rockets do this summer, whether they go after Giannis, whether they go after Kevin Durant, whether they go after Devin Booker, whether they go after another star player that nobody sees coming, there's one certainty about the Houston Rockets based off of what we've seen in these playoffs. They absolutely need to cut bait with Jalen Green. They need to move him. They need to move on from him, because that experiment is over. I've seen, and I'm sure Houston Rocket fans watching this would agree with me on this. I've seen what I need to see with Jalen Green. Jalen Green ain't that guy. He's not that guy. He's not that franchise super all-star franchise cornerstone guard. He just isn't. And look, man, I don't want to lay too much slander on the kid, but the man was absolutely dreadful in this first round series. I mean, this is a dude that averaged 13 points a game. He shot 37% from the field, 30% from three. I mean, just abysmal. And here's the thing with Jalen Green. You look at his numbers in this series against the Golden State Warriors. He had a 38-point game in game 2. Give him credit for that. But in every game outside of that one game, he was terrible. You look at the numbers that he had in every other game outside of the game 2 game. He had a 12-point game. He finished the 6 games outside of that 38-point game. He had 12 points, 11 points, 9 points, 8 points, 8 points, 7 points. I mean, really? 4 out of the 7 games he's had in this series against Golden State, he scored in single digits. Single digits. I mean, just terrible. And the reality with Jalen Green is, you look at his career, his 4-year career up to this point, this is kind of what he's been. He's a tease. He's a guy that, one night he'll average 35, he'll score 35, and then the next night he'll have 9. And then the following night he'll have 28, and then the next game he'll have 8. And then the next game he'll have 30, and then the next game he'll have 12. I mean, he's a roller coaster. That's Jalen Green. Roller coaster. I might as well just call him roller coaster Jalen, because that's what he's been throughout his 4 years in Houston. He's a roller coaster. And this is a guy that was drafted, 2nd overall, 3rd overall in 2021. I think it was 3rd. Might have been 3rd or 2nd. But he was a top 3 pick in 2021. And if you look at his numbers and if you look at his efficiency, he hasn't gotten any better. He just hasn't. He gets you to 20 points a game, but he's not efficient. He doesn't get to the free throw line. What is Jalen Green doing if he's not scoring the basketball? He's not making an impact on the game. And you look at this series against the Golden State Warriors. I mean, he's just he has the look of a player that he just doesn't know how to play. He doesn't. He has no idea how to impact the game. You know, you look at his athletic tools and you see the athleticism and you see the ability to dunk on people. And on occasion he'll make a few shots and he'll get hot and he'll tease you. But at the end of the day, he always leaves Houston Rocket fans wanting more. And that was the legit case in this series against the Golden State Warriors. Here's the truth about Jalen Green's play. Here's the truth. If the Houston Rockets had a better shooting guard that would have provided more than what Jalen Green was able to give them, the Houston Rockets would have won this series. They would have absolutely beaten the Golden State Warriors in like 6 games. Seriously, they would have won this series if they gotten better production out of their shooting guard outside of Jalen Green. Because you look at the rest of the Houston Rockets, Amen Thompson, the other young player for the Houston Rockets, like I gotta give this man some props, man. You know, the guy had 24 points last night. And if you look at what he's done, not just in this series, but over the course of this season, he's been awesome. He is a guy that's becoming Houston's franchise player. He's the guy that if I'm the Houston Rockets and I'm going after a Giannis or a Devin Booker or a KD or anybody else, he's untouchable. I'm not moving that dude for anybody. Amen Thompson is the goods. You know, just the athleticism that he has. Defensively, I thought he did an awesome job on Steph Curry throughout most of this series. Now, Steph Curry was able to get his because he's Steph Curry. And you can't really just stop him with one guy. But Amen Thompson did yeoman's work on him in this series. And just overall, just guarding on the ball, providing weak side rim protection, stealing the ball, making plays in transition, making great passes, finishing at the rim, you know, attacking off the dribble. Amen Thompson as an athlete, I don't know if there's a more athletic. I don't know if there's a more athletic player in the league more than Amen Thompson. This dude is a stud, and I think the sky is pointing up with him. I think the sky's the limit for this kid. And one of the reasons why I think Houston should also move on from Jalen Green, I want to see this kid do more. I want to see this kid with a bigger role. I want to see what this kid can do with more of a load on his shoulders, where he has a bigger role, where he has to score a little more, or where he has the ball in his hands a little more, because he's explosive, man. This Amen Thompson's explosive. You know, and when I'm trying to find a comparison for a guy like Amen Thompson, I don't know. It's hard to Scottie Pippen, you know, maybe like a more explosive Ben Simmons. You know, if Ben Simmons played up to his potential, I mean, he is Amen Thompson, man. He is a physical specimen of a dude, and like I said, man, he's a guy that, like, if I'm the Houston Rockets, he's untouchable in any trade. I would not move him for anybody in the league. Well, let me take that back. Maybe it's a Wemby. You know, maybe it's Victor Wembanyama in San Antonio. But that might be it. Like, I would not move him for anybody else, because that's how physically gifted this young man is. And so you got a guy like him, you know, that I think Houston should continue to build with. And like with Jalen Green, here's the facts, man, with Jalen Green. And look, I don't want to hear anything about this dude being young. I don't, because he's just finished his 4th year in the league. It's not like this is a first year. It's not like he's a second-year player. He's a 4th-year player, and guess what? He's been healthy. You know, this is a guy that hasn't been hurt for any of his careers. He's played nearly every game. And the truth is with Jalen Green is, and people don't want to hear this, but it's just true. It's the truth. When we're talking about Jalen Green as a basketball player, he's much closer to Jordan Poole than he is to Devin Booker or Anthony Edwards. It's just the truth. Jalen Green is much closer to Jordan Poole than he is to Devin Booker or Anthony Edwards. He is much closer to a guy, and quite frankly, if I'm being honest, I think Jordan Poole is even a better player than this dude. That's how bad Jalen Green is. Jalen Green, if you're a team that is serious about wanting to compete for a championship, if you're serious about competing at a high level, Jalen Green on a serious team should be your sixth man. He should not be your starting two guard. He is a bench player. And that's how he played in this series against the Warriors. He was embarrassingly awful. He was terrible. Terrible. And like I said, I don't want to hear anything about this dude being young. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. He's 23 years old. He's been in the league 4 years. There's no reason for this dude to be this. I mean, look, every player has bad games. Every player will have a bad game. Jalen Green, in 6 of the 7 games in this series against the Warriors, was playing awful. And during the regular season, this dude was Houston's leading scorer. And so if I'm the Houston Rockets, and look, I get it. It's going to be a conversation. Everyone knows it. They need a bona fide number one scoring option, and they do. They need a legitimate 3-level scorer. They need a guy that can score, that can shoot the three, who can take the ball to the rack, hit mid-rangers, and get a bucket when you needed them to. That's the one thing that was missing from the Houston Rockets in this series against the Warriors. And the truth is, Jalen Green was supposed to be that guy. He was supposed to be the guy that was supposed to answer the bell. And he never he wasn't even close to delivering for the Houston Rockets. And regardless of what Houston does, and look, maybe they go after Giannis. And look, if they wanted Giannis, they could probably offer much more than any team in the league outside of maybe the Oklahoma City Thunder. So if Houston wanted Giannis, and if Giannis wanted out of Milwaukee, the Houston Rockets, they would be right near the top of the line as far as getting Giannis. And so maybe they go after Giannis, maybe they go after KD, maybe they go after Devin Booker. But regardless of what they do this summer, I think they have one top objective. They have to figure out a way to get Jalen Green off this team. It absolutely has to happen. They have to figure out a way to get Jalen Green off this team, because he ain't it. He's not the answer. Jalen Green is not the answer for the Houston Rockets. He showed that, and he showed that definitively in this series against the Golden State Warriors. And he has shown this throughout most of his career with the Houston Rockets. He's too inconsistent. He has not developed any level of consistency. Nothing. And they've had different coaches. We can talk about the coaching that he's had in Houston. You know, Ime Udoka is one of the best coaches in the league. He's been there the last 2 years. Ime Udoka, one of the best coaches in the league, coached the Boston Celtics to the NBA Finals. What was it? 3 years ago? 2022. And so, like, you got a very good coach. And this guy still has not fully developed. And he's in year 4. I mean, this is kind of who he is as a basketball player. It's kind of who he is. And so, you know, look, man, I think Houston has a lot going for them moving forward. And, you know, look, I mentioned Amen Thompson as far as how good of a stud that he is. Alfred Sengun, who, look, I don't think Alfred Sengun had a great series either. You know, if I'm being honest, like, I thought Draymond Green did a really good job of holding him in check. But I also look at Alfred Sengun and think like, at least he showed like a presence at times in this series, you know, getting the rebounds and even doing some stuff defensively. And he did average 20 and 10 in this series. And so, like, even though Alfred Sengun didn't score well, I thought at times he made his presence felt. And so I thought he did a decent job making a name for himself in this series. And so, like, you got a guy like Alfred Sengun, you got Amen Thompson, you got veterans like Fred VanVleet, who was really good, especially in the latter half of this series. Really a big reason why the Houston Rockets was able to tie this series up 3-3 after they were down 3-1. And so you got a guy like Fred VanVleet, Steven Adams. I mean, man, talk about a presence in the paint on both ends of the floor. You know, like I said, man, if I'm the Houston Rockets, I want to do what I can to bring him back. You know, so you got a guy like Steven Adams, who is awesome. Dylan Brooks as a veteran. You got Jabari Smith and Tyree Eason, who gets it done defensively. And so Houston got a lot of good parts, man. They have a lot of good parts. And look, if they want to go star hunting, you know, I'm sure you'll be able to move a couple of those guys. You know, and maybe you have a chance of getting your a Giannis or a Devin Booker or a KD. And so, you know, Houston has a lot of things coming. And look, you got this kid who didn't play in the series, who they drafted last year, Reed Shepherd. You know, and look, I would not be so quick to write this dude off just because he didn't play much as a rookie. You know, I think I'm willing to bet if Houston holds on to Reed Shepherd that I think he's going to have a bigger role next season. And so this is a guy that could make some stuff happen, and maybe he could become, you know, a key piece for the Rockets next season. So I'm not going to rule out a guy like Reed Shepherd making stuff happen next year. And so, like I say, Houston, they have a lot of things going for them. And I think they're going to be a talking point of this NBA offseason because they have the assets and draft picks and flexibility to go in a multitude of directions, and they can target any type of star or even a role player or some sort. Like, they can do a multitude of things. And so they're going to be a talking point, but make no mistake about it. If I'm the Houston Rockets and I'm looking at what's the most important objective for this offseason, they absolutely need to move on from Jalen Green.